Welcome back, everybody, to America on the Road. Jack Nerad back with you. We have a terrific guest for you talking about a terrific vehicle, a legendary vehicle, and I don't use that term loosely either. The Toyota Land Cruiser has become a legend over the course of many, many decades. And Kalifa Sprowl, who is a senior series planner at Toyota Motor North America, otherwise known as Toyota, and a product marketing person there for Land Cruiser, is with us to tell us all about it. Number one, this is a legendary vehicle, isn't it, Kalifa?
It is. For about 70 years, it's been the case.
Yeah, just one of the first Toyota vehicles, I think, to come to the U.S. market, and in a lot of ways, back in those days, a Jeep competitor. It has gone through several iterations, got a lot bigger, became maybe more suburban than before, and now kind of, in a lot of ways, going back to its roots. Talk to us about that, would you?
Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah, just quick little history timeline here. But yeah, for about 70 years, it's kind of been that off-roading partner of choice, known globally, not just in the Americas, but it really kind of got its claim, or rather, Toyota itself got its claim to fame with the Land Cruiser, known for its off-road capability, its reliability, that quality, or what we like to call QDR, right? Quality, durability, and reliability. So you have this trifecta essentially built into a vehicle that really kind of helped shape Toyota's credibility in North America. So with that being said, yeah, there's been, as you know, several iterations of Land Cruiser. And to speak to this most recent one, this is definitely more so, like you said, a return to its roots, a return to form, really kind of taking the clock backwards and forwards at the same time. I think it's a great way to kind of capture that. But we really just tried to go back to what's the Land Cruiser nameplate? What's the DNA at the end of the day? And what essentially where drivers, consumers, if you will, what did they know about the vehicle? And we're kind of like keeping that aspect about it. That being said, obviously, we're also kind of modernizing it, right? How can we make it, how can we innovate? How can we make off-roading not be this exclusionary thing where someone has to be this, you have to kind of be this experienced seasonal person to kind of really get the hang of it. And I think one of the things that really kind of pulls out of this vehicle is the fact that we are making it a lot more of something that is, again, less exclusionary, but more open to anyone who has like the spirit of adventure and wants to get behind the wheel and kind of really wants to go, find themselves, if you will, out in the wild in the Land Cruiser.
Right. I mean, the previous edition, most recent edition before this one of the Land Cruiser was bigger. There were 3-row versions of it, and larger has its advantages and disadvantages. Maybe some disadvantages when in terms of going off-road, for example, maybe not quite as agile. So this vehicle really, and I have had a chance to drive it, returns to the roots of a smaller, more agile, but certainly fully capable vehicle off-road. And that's totally the Land Cruiser DNA, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely something. I mean, yeah, you compare it to because it's been about 3 years since we sold the Land Cruiser in North America, right? And the previous generation, it's a little bit different, right? Not only did you have this probably higher sticker price, right? But you also already had something that was kind of teetering along the line more so of a luxury vehicle, right? Maybe more so on the line of a Lexus, for example. So that being said, we really just kind of stripped it back to basics, right? It's an it's an off-roading vehicle. It's something that you want to take on the trails. It's something you want to outfit, customize, make it rugged. But to your point, like something that's nimble, something that can actually, take on these trails and not be so. I think you used the word already, but like not something that's just so. For lack of a better word, big, essentially, right? On the trails, you want something that you can customize, etc. So this is something that we look at as essentially as an enthusiast blank canvas, right? And there's 2 trims, 2 very basic grade strategies, especially in comparison to the prior generation. But you have the Land Cruiser 1958. That's your vehicle that has the kind of retro-esque circular headlamps, kind of reminiscent of Land Cruisers of the past. But you also have something that, again, is a blank canvas. So if you want to go in there, customize it, rig it up, if you will, you have the freedom to do that. That's probably something that's, more for the seasoned overlander, off-roader, if you will. And then you have the Land Cruiser grade, right? And that Land Cruiser grade is the core kind of, a little bit more creature comforts. You have a little bit more of something that you're probably accustomed to nowadays with typical vehicles in terms of just the interior. But at the end of the day, both of those vehicles have that capability baked in from default. So you're not going to compromise on that either if you're in a 1958 grade or the Land Cruiser trim. But yeah, all that to say, a lot of that thinking in terms of just, making it, I think simplicity was essentially kind of the theme that went into the engineering, the design, even the interior. You say you have one yourself. I mean, I think you can kind of see the differences between generations of the past and what we're doing now, especially most recent generation Land Cruiser versus the model year 24.
When I was writing about this, and I wrote a review for U.S. News, among other things, what I noted was you've kind of found some white space here for this vehicle. And there isn't a whole lot of white space in this market, right? But this seems to, find a little bit of a niche. Certainly Toyota sells the 4Runner, very, very popular, super capable off-road vehicle. Something I tested actually as recently as this week. This is different than that, maybe a step up or a half a step up from that in a different way. How would you characterize Land Cruiser versus 4Runner, for example?
No, and I love this question because I think it's I'm probably biased because I'm in marketing, but it's such an exciting question to me because when you look at it, both 4Runner and Land Cruiser fit within this segment that we call the mid SUV segment, right? So for the most part, the consumer who's in this segment, their considerations consist of Land Cruiser, 4Runner, Jeep Wrangler, Bronco, etc. So these are kind of like the playing field, if you will, when it comes to these vehicles. With that being said, it's a growing segment. A lot more people, a lot more women, for example, multicultural audiences are kind of going out there, getting more into overlanding, really kind of starting to tap into, I guess you could say, these adventurous spaces, if you will. So with that being said, as it comes down to these two vehicles within our lineup, I in a sense, there is a bit of a niche there, but I would also argue that we're kind of pulling away from that niche with this generation of Land Cruiser as well. Again, it's not so exclusionary with this price point. We have an entry price point of $55,000 MSRP. But on top of that, there comes down to a consumer preference, right? So we recently unveiled the all new 4Runner, amazing looking vehicle, right? A lot, right? And then on top of that, you also have a wider bandwidth when it comes to your trims with 4Runner, right? Not to go through all of them in detail, but Trail Hunter, TRD Pro, for example, right? And again, I just kind of mentioned the two real core trims outside of the special edition, first edition vehicle. It's just Land Cruiser and Land Cruiser 1958, essentially. So all that to say, we are kind of tapping into multiple audiences with both, but I'd say and I'm a visual person, but Land Cruiser kind of comes in a little bit more on that upper tier with price point, but also when it comes to maybe overall styling and you could say, actually, that's really kind of what it really is at the end of the day, styling, but I also say maybe preference, consumer preference.
Yeah, maybe interior creature comforts a bit and those kind of things as well, comfort and convenience stuff.
And the preference part, go ahead.
No, I was just going to talk about powertrain a little bit because it's got a fascinating powertrain, actually, 326 horsepower, 2.4 liter turbocharged engine that also incorporates a hybrid system. Talk a bit about that. I mean, it's certainly an interesting powertrain for an off-road vehicle.
No, that's a great segue. I was actually going to go into that. So, and that's kind of where, again, those differences come into with the consumer looking at a 4Runner versus the Land Cruiser, right? Obviously, with 4Runner, you're going to have the flexibility of two different powertrains. You also have third row, for example. So with Land Cruiser, we're so confident in our iForce Max hybrid powertrains that, in a sense, it speaks for itself. And I think initially when we first revealed Land Cruiser, again, 3-year hiatus, completely different looking vehicle from the outside in. right? At the end of the day, it still carries the Land Cruiser name. Honestly, consumers were a little taken aback by like, oh, it's a hybrid. Oh, where's all this familiarity I had with, the Land Cruiser name? But I will say, from my most recent ride and drive experiences with the press and media, I think the largest takeaway from that was just the surprise. Right. Here you have this iForce Max hybrid powertrain, same powertrain that's shared with the hybrid Tacoma, for example, that's taking on these really technical trails, these routes, and there's no compromise with that. There's no lack of, that confidence when it comes to the overall power and capability. So I think that kind of speaks to not only Land Cruiser, but also the technology of our hybrid powertrains in itself, that we're still not making any compromises on overall performance, and you're still getting something that is comparable to what you would typically get with a gas powertrain. So all that to say, and I also think it just kind of makes a stance in the sense that, we all know how important, I guess if you're close enough to the Land Cruiser name, you know how important that is to Toyota, and for us to kind of reintroduce it into the market, the North America market, as 100% hybrid, I also think that speaks volumes to our overall hybrid messaging strategy.
Right. Well, and capability are very, very important. Certainly with this brand, the Land Cruiser brand has full-time four-wheel drive, center and rear locking differentials, which are very, very important for full-on off-road capability. It also has the optional front stabilizer bar disconnect, which is, an interesting feature. Very, very off-road oriented, obviously. Enables rock crawling, that kind of thing. Talk about those kind of things, that capability and that equipment level.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to just the DNA, right? We focus more so on what are the essentials to someone who is overlanding, who's off-roading, who's taking their vehicle into the depths of who knows, right? You want to be prepared for everything. But yeah, with the 1958 grade, essentially, you have the center locking differentials. You do not have a stabilizer bar disconnect mechanism standard in that vehicle. However, that is standard in the Land Cruiser grade. But outside of that, you still have your crawl control with downhill assist. You still have some of the most, basic features that you need when it comes to just overall capability and off-roading. Obviously, we pack a little bit more in the higher trim with the Land Cruiser grade. So with that, on top of the standard features, you're also getting the addition of the stabilizer disconnect mechanism. But I think one of the features that was pointed out that you could say kind of fits in both these categories of capability and technology is the fact that we have a multi-terrain monitor and multi-terrain select. And those two functions in tandem really kind of help, again, that novice, a person that's probably not necessarily familiar with off-roading, really kind of feel accustomed and really kind of feel the vehicle, really. I mean, the multi-terrain monitor is, I feel like it's a great tool because you're starting to get the clearance. You're kind of understanding what's around the vehicle, but what's underneath it too, right? You want to curve around the rocks. You don't want to hit your radiator or something like that, right? You're trying to, off-roading's a technical thing, right? I kind of feel like it's almost like chess, right? You're always thinking, right? You
should be thinking ahead. Yeah, you should be thinking several moves ahead, like you do in chess. It makes all the sense.
Exactly. You're always thinking ahead. You're always kind of, calculating your next move in real time. And like I said, for someone who's not necessarily taking on the trails every single day, but they are a weekend warrior and they like to, have fun when they can. These systems work to really kind of create that confidence for the consumer or the driver rather. So all that to say, with the built-in capability and the added technology, it complements the vehicle overall. And this kind of going back to my earlier point, turning the clock backwards and forwards at the same time, we're looking at, again, what's the true DNA of this vehicle, but what can we add up on top of that to make it this harmonious experience for the driver? And again, at the end of the day, it's rooted in that adventure. It's rooted in that, wander, right, of just exploring in your truck.
Right. I want to talk a little bit about the personalities of the two trims, because I was taken with I got to drive both vehicles, both trim levels. I was kind of taken with the 1958 trim. Yeah, its simplicity, kind of its retro or throwback kind of feel to it. I mean, I don't know if an 8-inch infotainment screen is exactly throwback, but it's, I guess, more throwback than a 12.3-inch infotainment screen, something like that,
Yeah.
right? I mean, talk about the two personalities, because I think these vehicles have two different personalities.
Yeah, I like that question a lot because it's something that we talk about. And I'll kind of reiterate something I said before, but you look at the 1958, right? It has those really cool retro iconic headlights. Overall, you have not as much of a scale when it comes to your vehicle options, at least for model year 24 when it comes to that vehicle. However, you're getting the bare bones Land Cruiser. Again, the DNA is there, right? Most people who are getting a Land Cruiser, they're going to kind of go into it, gut it, chop it up, do whatever they want to do anyway to modify it to how they use their vehicle, right? Especially if they're one of those enthusiasts. So that's why we kind of look at that 1958 as an enthusiast blank canvas. They're already going to modify it. They're going to do what they need to do to it to make it their own. Then we have the Land Cruiser. And again, you have to think about, on a marketing side, right? We are hitting a different segment. We're hitting a wider audience, because of the lower MSRP, because of all these things. So with that being said, Land Cruiser is a little bit more mass market to say. Does not water down the brand, does not water down what the Land Cruiser is known for, but you have to kind of understand that for someone who, again, not the everyday off-road, or not the everyday adventurer, but likes the appeal and likes what the Land Cruiser could provide for them, that's something that becomes aspirational, but also a lot more obtainable. So Land Cruiser kind of just stands as that vehicle that's kind of, it's the vehicle that I feel like if you want to put to the test, will it get me back? Will it take me there, but will it get me back? That's where the Land Cruiser kind of stands in that function, right? This is for someone who wants to kind of test their ability, but really, again, kind of going back to that inspirational, aspirational point, is this, I want to explore my adventure, my adventurous side. And in the Land Cruiser, I can do that. It's essentially what we think about when we look at the Land Cruiser grade in itself.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. It kind of strikes me, too, the 1958 trim might be the blank canvas that you modify yourself based on what you want to do and get into it for a lower price point. The Land Cruiser kind of has what you need, right? I mean, for, just maybe I guess it's about $6,000 premium for that versus the $55,000, $56,000 of the 1958. And you kind of choose what direction you want to go there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you nailed it. I mean, you look at the two trims side by side, 1958 looks a little bit more minimal in comparison because you don't have the running boards, the roof rails, right? But most people who are probably looking at that one, they're going to do whatever they want to do to that one anyway, right? Same with the technology. I mean, you're getting a smaller screen standard, but at the same time, it's just enough for what you're probably going to do, right, in that vehicle. Whereas with the Land Cruiser trim, yes, you have a little bit more, like I said, the creature comforts. You get the bigger screen. You have the available premium package. So if you want your audiophile, you want your JBL, you want all these things, if you will, you have that option. And again, it kind of blends that mainstream / still kind of adventure, still kind of want someone who's still on the fringe, if you will, right? But you're still kind of getting that mainstream creature comforts that you're used to for the most part with any other vehicle, especially vehicles within our lineup. But yeah, with that being said, there's definitely two different personalities, but we're also speaking to two different drivers, two different people who kind of, again, they appeal to this vehicle in a stylistic standpoint. There is this mystique around the Land Cruiser badge, right? So it appeals to them in that way. And at the same time, we're giving them the option. If you're more of an enthusiast, you want to go all in, here's 1958. If you're someone who just kind of wants to dip your toe, but unbeknownst to you, you're going to be taken for a wild ride on top of that, you have the Land Cruiser.
Right. Of all the features, and I mean, the 2024 Land Cruiser has a lot of features. Which one is your favorite? Which one do you think, wow, this is really cool. This is a differentiator for us. This is something we can really, ballyhoo a bit, blow the horn about. What is a feature or two that you feel that way about?
Man, it's hard to pick one, and I'm very biased, but I honestly think for me, because I love, just a little bit about me, I love camping. I love off-roading when I can. Like, I just love being in the outdoors. Am I necessarily a pro at those things? Not necessarily. However, I do like the confidence I do have behind the wheel of it, because one, I love the overall drive of it. The vehicle drives amazingly well, in my opinion. And on top of that, I think for me, honestly, the biggest call out is I love the multi-terrain monitor. I love how that technology functions in a sense that you have these really clear, crisp cameras that are really giving you that 360 of what's going on in the vehicle, what's going on around you. Like I said, it's like playing chess. So rather than having to overthink my next move, I can focus more on the drive. I can focus more on just kind of experiencing it versus, overthinking like, oh, is there a rock there, X, Y, and Z, right? So that's probably one of the larger features that I kind of like in from my experience of driving it. But overall, I mean, there's so many different features within the vehicle. And I think, based upon, obviously based upon the driver, the person behind the wheel, how they use their vehicle, they're going to find something to love in the Land Cruiser.
Yeah, I think so. I certainly love driving. And Kalifa Sprowl, thanks so much for talking with us of Toyota, talking with us about the all new 2024 Toyota Land Cruiser. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Jack.
Great to talk to you, and stay with us, everybody. We'll be right back right here on America on the Road.